Your mic's hot? All right, we'll rock and roll here, guys, shortly. We're getting headlines in. We got more news to relay and pass along to you from the gunfight in downtown Belmont on Sunday afternoon. More follow-up questions. I think this is a story that has captivated much of Charlottesville and Albemarle County and Central Virginia, and it's compounded, the momentum of the story is compounded by some of the violence that's transpired, say, over the last year, over the last 6 months, 8 months. We'll talk about that and ask questions that I know you, the viewers and listeners, are wondering and asking currently right now. The interesting elements of the of this story is you can make the argument that the two top cops, the two top enforcers of accountability and the law are currently not active. COTUS starts January 16th, and January 16th is next Monday. And the vacancy with the city attorney's position is also very evident and relevant right now, because your police department chief and your top attorney are currently vacant right now, the positions. So we'll talk about that on the show, the significance of it. I think we have underestimated the amount of work that needs to be done by local government right now. I mean, you have budget season coming up. You have a city manager's position that currently is not full. You have upzoning legislation that's very much in the hopper and on the front burner. You have Sena McGill's position that needs to be filled. You have a police chief that starts next Monday, a city attorney position that's vacant. I mean, significant work. Give the show a like and a share. We're going to get rocking and rolling here in T-minus 30 seconds. Scott Aaronworth, hello. He says, hey, Jerry and J-Dubs. J-Dubs has a 2-shot ready to go, and the microphone in front of him. Scott Aaronworth, you're the king of Virginia Beach. Hammer that like button for us and ask questions. We are happy to relay them live on air. Other topics I want to talk about is, how concerned are you as parents if your students are safe in schools, if your kids? That topic on today's show. Judah Wickower, you ready to rock and roll?
Yeah.
All right. Thank you. Ball's in your court, my friend.
Quiet on the set.
Guys, welcome to the I Love Seville show. My name is Jerry Miller. Thank you kindly for joining us. A pleasure to connect with you guys on every social media platform known to mankind. It's a Tuesday afternoon, and we have more news to relay to you from the shootout in Belmont. You know, I've called it a gunfight on the headlines on screen, and why don't we go to the 2-shot right now? We'll give props to Scott Wagner Integrated Medicine. We'll welcome Judah to the show and then go back to the 1-shot so they can see the headlines and how I wrote them and described them. I called it a gunfight. I don't know if gunfight, Judah, is actually accurate. You know, it's more of a shootout in Belmont, because I would think a gunfight is more synonymous with multiple folks shooting at each other. Wouldn't you agree with that description or that definition of the word gunfight?
I think it's kind of splitting hairs. I mean, this was kind of both.
You think this was a gunfight? I think this is more of a is a shootout more indicative of one person doing the shooting, or a gunfight?
I think they're basically the same thing.
You think a gunfight is synonymous, or by definition of the word, one person doing the shooting? Because I don't want to utilize a word in a scenario that's so grave and significant that is not applicable.
I think both of them apply to multiple people.
What do you think, viewers and listeners? I've called it a gunfight in Belmont. Regardless, perhaps I'm splitting hairs a little bit, and thank you kindly for joining us on the Tuesday edition of the show. Today's show presented by Scott Wagner of Scott Wagner Integrated Medicine. Who's got your back? Dr. Wagner's got your back. Scott Wagner Integrated Medicine. We'll go to the one shot. We'll show the headlines on screen. I still have a lot of questions. I don't know if you have a lot of questions. I certainly do. Have given this storyline significant thought over the last 48 hours. I mean, we're not even 48 hours removed from someone getting murdered, steps away from a handful of restaurants that all of us patronize often, or many of us patronize often. We are less than 48 hours removed from a murder in a neighborhood that is now very tony and prestigious and expensive. I mean, you're talking about a neighborhood that is $500,000 and up from a real estate value standpoint. We are less than 48 hours away from a murder that has much of the community asking questions like, who are these people? And why are they in vehicles that have license plates associated with Texas? And license plates associated with Maryland and out-of-state transportation? And why was there a wad of cash next to the dead man outside Fitzgerald Tire? And was this semi-automatic rifle purchased legitimately? And why was it just dropped next to a dead man outside of a sign that says, I love Charlottesville a lot? I mean, can you imagine the sense of apprehension or nervousness or fear or vulnerability that the residents in Belmont are currently experiencing right now? I mean, if you walk outside your house and you walk outside your front door and you're in your front yard or your backyard or on the sidewalk and you see caution tape and police cars and a dead man on a street with the sheet pulled over him, what are you thinking when you go to bed at night? How many times do you go and check the front door or the side door and make sure it's locked? And do you leave the lights on outside your house overnight as opposed to turning them off at bedtime to save some money? I mean, these are questions that I think a lot of people are experiencing right now, and questions we shouldn't be taking for granted, because it could be any of us that had to deal with this. The questions I have is this gang related? The questions I have are...
Most assuredly.
You say most certainly.
Yeah.
Questions I have is, why are we not being instructed by the police of what are the ties to the crime and violence and murders that have happened of late? Could they, in some ways or not, be, the I's dotted, the T's crossed, and could they be linked? Do you have these questions? I certainly do. What do you do if you're the businesses in Belmont and you want to maintain consumer confidence on a Friday night or a Saturday night or on a Sunday afternoon, and you want people coming for a happy hour or dinner or brunch or lunch or breakfast? You know, a lot, I'm still wondering, and I highlighted to start the program, the top cop in Charlottesville City, Michael Kachis, doesn't start till Monday, officially. The top attorney, Lisa Robertson, she quit, so that position's open. The CEO of the city, Michael Rogers, is a consultant from the Robert Bob Group and not a permanent hire. The three people that are most entrusted with managing this scenario, the city attorney, that position's empty. The chief of police, that position's empty until Monday. and the CEO, the city manager, is a consultant that does not have institutional memory and doesn't know the fabric or the dynamic of Charlottesville City. On top of that, you have a council spot, Sina McGills, that is in limbo as she announced her resignation. You know, I've been thinking over the last 48 hours that council has significantly more work in front of them than perhaps we all appreciated or understood. I'm curious on Police Chief Kotchis' first day, what he makes of this murder. I mean, it should be identified and acknowledged and discussed, and policing strategies or some kind of transparent details or management of this murder should be offered to us as voters and as taxpayers and as citizens. Don't you agree? I feel that way. Let's go to the two-shot again and welcome Judah Wickower, the director, to the show. I mean, were you not left scratching your head more after reading Hawes Spencer's article in the Daily Progress or what NBC 29 or CBS 19 reported? Obviously, what they are reporting is a direct correlation to the press release issued by the Charlottesville Police Department. You know, this John Doe, there was someone that was murdered, a man from Texas, Osvaldo Lopez Hernandez. Osvaldo Lopez Hernandez of Texas was killed during the daytime after church was let out outside Fitzgerald Tire.
Yeah.
He's got an associate. The associate is solely being identified as John Doe. John Doe was hit by gunfire, by bullets.
Yeah.
John Doe's in the hospital.
Mm-hmm.
John Doe he was shot.
Yeah.
Here are the questions I have. Why was the man who was also shot, who's in the hospital right now, why was he charged with felony abduction for financial benefit, felony use of a firearm, and misdemeanor brandishing, according to police? Do you have that question?
No, because I think they know who he is, and I think
You don't have that question? You don't want to know why the man that was in the hospital and shot with gunfire, shot by bullets, was also charged with felony abduction for financial benefit? Or felony use of a firearm and misdemeanor brandishing?
Because I think I have those answers. That's why I don't...
What are those answers?
Well, first of all, they know who he is.
Well, we only know him as John Doe. I'd like to know who he is, because I don't think John Doe's his name.
I don't think it is either, because they say that CPD arrested Jose Omar Rivas Sorto of Maryland on the scene. He is charged with shooting from a vehicle and was taken to jail. And I believe I saw somewhere else that from the sound of things, the charges that they have against him have to do with prior problems that the guy's had.
Why was John Doe, who is being described as an associate of the dead man, John Doe, an associate of the dead man from Texas, Lopez Hernandez, the dead man, John Doe, who was struck by gunfire in the shootout on Sunday, why was he also charged with felony abduction for financial benefit? That felony abduction for financial benefit, from a layman's perspective, which you and I are laymen, sounds like kidnapping for the sake of leveraging the kidnapping to make money, does it not?
Yeah.
Okay. So was John Doe, who was an associate of the dead man, did he kidnap the dead man?
Like I said, I think that charge is connected to something not having to do with this particular shootout.
You're saying the John Doe charges?
Yeah.
You're saying John Doe, who is in the hospital after getting shot by guns, the charges he's facing, felony abduction for financial benefit, felony use of a firearm, and misdemeanor brandishing, these are charges from a previous incident.
They could be.
What are you basing this on? Out of curiosity. And I'm not saying you're wrong here. I just don't see how you're speaking with this with any kind of confidence or in conviction.
Okay, well, maybe I'm wrong. Then in that
What are you
case,
basing it on? What are you basing the statements on? Is all I'm asking, respectfully.
I don't know. Maybe I just misread. Maybe I just misread what I'm seeing here. And
Well, read it to the viewers and listeners, and I'd like to learn from you as well. I don't. Why is the guy who shot in the hospital, the guy who's in the hospital who shot, facing these other charges? And were these other charges associated with activity against the dead man from Texas? Like, did John Doe kidnap the dead man from Texas?
maybe he did.
Or are they from other charges from another incident?
I honestly don't know. I may
you
have
said you didn't
misread
have
something.
the questions in the beginning. That's why I was asking. So you do have the questions. I'm not trying to give you a hard time here.
Some of them, but I don't have questions about who the guy is because
We don't know who John Doe is. We don't know who John Doe is.
Well, then CBS 19 must be wrong.
All right, I haven't read the CBS 19 article. I'm going there right now. CBS 19 News.
I literally told you his name was Jose Omar Rivas Sorto of Maryland.
CBS 19. Is this in the lead slot?
New information, identities released in Belmont shooting, Snook calls
No,
extra
you've
concern.
read this wrong. You need to read Hall Spencer in the Daily Progress. Jose Omar Ramirez Sorto of Maryland is the guy charged with felony shooting from a vehicle and from a car. He's the one that shot the dead guy and killed him. He's
Okay.
not John Doe.
All right. So you're saying that there's...
Oh, man,
I
you
got
haven't read. Golly. Here, I'm going to slide over.
I've got it.
Read this. Read that. Give me that computer back, please. Read the Daily Progress article with the investigative reporting done by Hall Spencer, please. Do you guys not have these questions? Is anyone confused by the outcome of what happened in Belmont? Read the Daily Progress article, not the press release from the 22-year-old. Instead, read the article written by the nearly 60-year-old award-winning journalist Hall Spencer, please. Hall Spencer's got the institutional memory. He's the editor and the founder of The Hook, who's a journalism professor at James Madison University and has been in this market as a real estate developer. Hall Spencer purchased the Jefferson Theater before selling it to Corin Capshaw. Hall Spencer was the founder of the Seaville Weekly and the founder of The Hook, an award-winning writer and editor and publisher who is now a police beat writer for the Charlottesville Daily Progress. Frankly, we're fortunate to have him on the Charlottesville Police Beat because it's been a bloody calendar year in our 10.2 square mile city. Now that you've read the investigative award-winning reporter, Hall Spencer, do you not have the questions that I had?
I'm still trying to sort through what everybody does or doesn't know.
Hall Spencer's the narrative to read. The other ones is reporting done by journalists fresh out of college. Why is John Doe in the hospital charged with abduction of somebody for financial benefit?
I'm guessing because they have proof that he abducted somebody.
Is this a charge from kidnapping the dead man from Texas? Or is it from a previous event? Is this gang related? Why are vehicles from Maryland and Texas and out of state convening for a shootout in downtown Belmont on a Sunday afternoon in the daytime with a semi-automatic gun? What information will we get from Police Chief Kachis on his first day on the job on Monday? Why have we not heard from City Council and our mayor about this in a press conference setting, similar to how we saw Jim Ryan, the president of UVA, and Chief Longo of the University Police Department getting in front of the story immediately after 3 football players were murdered on grounds? How will this murder impact progress in City Hall associated with upzoning and creating more density? How will it impact the momentum of hiring a city manager full-time and replacing Lisa Robertson as city attorney? Will this murder and the convoluted nature of gang and violence and the fact that it's been a bloody 6 months in our city, will it impact progress associated with filling Sina McGill's spot, the city attorney's spot, the budget, $200+ million a year, and finding a new city manager that's full-time? All those questions are applicable and fair. I can't think of a more difficult time for a police chief to start a job, and I'm giving him the absolute benefit of the doubt, and I'm excited for him to start in the city. But he is taking over a department that is 1/3 empty, and we have now had. When was the murder on the downtown mall? Do you remember? I'm gonna grab this. Go to the studio camera if you could. What was the murder on the downtown mall? And we'll get to the viewers and listeners' comments. When was it?
Let's see.
The last 90 days? Was it November? You just had a shootout on the corner outside Boylan Heights less than a month ago, a few weeks ago.
It was end of October, I think.
End of October? It says it right there. Does it say the date of the killing, the murder?
Let's see.
I mean, you're talking less than 90 days ago. I would like Police Chief Kachis, and I'm being told that you've watched the show. And you're welcome, sir, on the program. I'm working. I've sent signal messages with one of your colleagues.
October 23rd.
October 23rd was the murder on the downtown mall. So November 23rd is 30 days. December 23rd is 60 days. We are less than 90 days removed. Police Chief Conscious, I'm trying to line up the interview with you, sir, for the show. I would love if on Monday you identified or offered some perspective on what happened in Belmont. You know, isolated incidents. Like you, aren't you wondering if the incidents are no longer isolated?
I mean, the police, at least in the county, know about gang violence around town.
The county police department and the police chief, he's exactly right, have straight up said we have a gang problem.
And I'm sure that the
Straight up, they've said
Sevo
it.
police know as well.
I think we deserve to know.
I believe Mayor Snook has stated that the first thing that Katja should be focused on when he takes his seat is this exact problem.
Identifying, saying he should talk about this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, so they know about it, and when he comes in, I'm sure that will be a major focus of his.
Solving, managing, or communicating? Or all of the above?
You're asking me how he's going to respond when he gets in office?
I mean, because I would want all of the above.
Of course.
I mean, we're not even a town of 50,000 people. You got folks from outside the area. You got basically kidnapping to make money. You got a semi-automatic gun. You got bullets fired at a rapid clip during the daytime in a neighborhood, in a commerce and dining district. Mm-hmm. You got a wad of money that was left on the ground. You got a semi-automatic gun that was left on the ground. You got a heck of a lot of people that are scared. Mm-hmm. You got a community that's already been ravaged by murder and gang violence and shooting. It's happening at a time...
Ravaged?
I'd say. You don't think?
Ravaged by murder, gun violence, and shooting? It sounds
I'd say Boylan Heights, a couple of weeks ago, shootout. Someone in a car, a guy and a gal, look it up online.
Who was killed?
No one was killed, they were shot though.
Okay.
You got the murder on the Lucky outside of, on the downtown mall. Not Lucky 7, but on the downtown mall.
Lucky Blues.
I mean, I don't want to say where it is.
Oh.
You got the Omni shooting, right?
Yeah.
Other people have been found dead and murdered that we've talked about on the show. One on Court Square.
I didn't know about that one.
Yeah,
When was that?
within the last 7 months. Hall Spencer also reported on that. Hall Spencer caught some heat for reporting on that murder because he was talking about the dead man's tattoos and utilizing the dead man's tattoos to paint a narrative of what his life was or could have been. But Hawes also reported this. I read all this news as if I'm a news junkie. I am. I mean, the chief is as much about solving crime as he is about creating confidence and instilling a sense of we have this covered. I mean, it's and imagine being imagine being Tavola, Local, Bell, Moss, Southern Crescent, the retail location.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, what are they having a powwow? The owners, right now or this week, are they putting a plan in play?
I mean, possibly if they think that this is going to be a regular occurrence, but I'm not sure why they would come to that conclusion.
J-Dubs, there was a murder in front of their businesses.
I know.
You don't think that this is going to have an impact on the community in some kind of capacity?
It might, but you're saying that they should spend money hiring...
That's what Keefe said
security?
yesterday, and you seem to agree with that idea yesterday.
If it's required.
No one's going to require it. It's a matter of managing confidence and creating it and fostering it. I mean, if it's a very realistic statement to say that if a gunfight happens outside your business and someone is murdered, that this is going to get the community talking and wondering if it's okay to go there. At least some people.
Yeah.
Is that, and it's happening in the first quarter in January. That is a slow time.
Okay.
I wouldn't say it's a tailwind. I would say it's a headwind.
I mean, you're also talking about
I mean, should
taking
the police
action during
department?
the slowest time where restaurants are going to go out of pocket and hire, I mean...
That's my point. That's my point. That's exactly my point.
That it's expensive?
It's happening at a time where the money is already stretched thin for them.
Yeah.
I mean, should Katja say on Monday, we're going to have on Thursday, Friday, and Saturday night, permanent police patrol there for an extended period of time?
Would that help?
Would it hurt?
I mean, yesterday we were talking about how this took place in the middle of the afternoon on a Sunday. So having police there on Friday, Saturday, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday night, I understand what you're suggesting. I just don't know that. I don't think that these aren't planned activities that happen.
We also said on yesterday's program that having police on a regular beat has an impact from perception and a safety and crime standpoint.
It certainly does, but it won't necessarily stop individual things like this from happening. It's more of a broader...
If there was a police officer in downtown Belmont at 1 p.m. on Sunday afternoon, you think the gunfight would have still happened?
There's a chance it would. Certainly.
I think you're just being combative for the sake of being
I'm
combative
not.
and a contrarian, as viewers and listeners have grown to expect. And I appreciate that, and I understand that's what your role is for this show, is to be a contrarian.
I'm not just being a contrarian, though. Do you honestly think that...
Do I honestly think that if a police officer was on the downtown mall beat prior to a murder happening, that the murder may or may not happen? Yes, it may not happen. Do I honestly think that if a police officer was on the beat in downtown Belmont at 1 p.m. on Sunday afternoon, that gunfight may not have happened? Yes, it may not have happened.
That is definitely a possibility.
That's
but it's not
all,
the only possibility.
That's what I'm saying.
Okay.
Yeah, and I appreciate your roles to be the contrarian. I mean, the combative one. You like to play that role. I know you do.
I'm not just being combative, Jerry. I'm sorry that you're trying to paint me in that.
No
light.
one's painting you that way. I mean, we've done 30 minutes of it. No one's painting you that way. I don't mind it.
Okay.
I mean, these are questions that we should have. We pay taxes. We live here. We vote. Our businesses are here. Our kids go to school here.
Yeah.
I mean, like it's scary that these are out of area people. Why are they here? Why are they here?
They're probably connected to MS-13.
I wonder the same. I wonder the same. Are they connected? I wonder the same. Why are Hispanic men with a semi-automatic gun from
With a
outside
rifle.
Central Virginia with wads of money rolled up and 3 out-of-state cars convening for an OK Corral gunfight in a neighborhood that has a downtown corridor strip of restaurants and retail outlets? Ironically, outside the I Love Charlottesville a lot sign. I mean, what the heck? Does it make it less worrisome if it was locals doing it?
Would it to you? I don't think it would make it less worrisome to me.
That's a question I was thinking about.
I mean, I don't know that. Maybe it would be less worrisome in if it wasn't related to a pretty nasty, a nasty Central and South American gang.
You're saying the ties to a out-of-state, out-of-country gang is more worrisome than if it was locals doing it to other locals.
Somewhat, though.
I think so too.
Though I don't think MS-13 is purely out of state anymore.
Well, I mean, one of the things that rumblings I've heard is there's some kind of turf battle going on right now because of Charlottesville's proximity to 64, 81, and 95 on the eastern seaboard. You have these major thoroughfares, interstates, that go to a large portion of the country, all somewhat convening in Charlottesville and Central Virginia. I mean, that's some of the scuttlebutt that's circulating. I mean, does the Belmont Neighborhood Association do pass the hat with homeowners in Belmont, or utilize its listserv from a communication standpoint to raise money to get a security force in Belmont for a short period of time?
I think it would be rather pointless, but
Pointless?
it's not like Belmont was targeted. I feel like this was like, for whatever reason, they ended up where they ended up shooting at each other. And to jump to the conclusion that that now Belmont needs heavy security, I feel like.
So we don't want to offer improved security downtown. We don't want to offer improved security in Belmont. We don't want to offer improved security on the corner.
Why don't we want to offer improved security downtown?
Well, I'm suggesting, shouldn't we improve the security?
I think what we need is.
End of October, we had someone murdered on the mall.
I know, but again, it wasn't Just like,
November, we had somebody murdered on UVA grounds. December, we had somebody try to get shot outside Boylan Heights.
but at least some of those are completely unconnected to the others. And
How do we know for sure?
How do you know for sure that the guy that shot football
UVA
players,
corners, UVA is different.
I know.
UVA is different.
I know that. That's
But
what I'm saying.
the one that was on the downtown mall and the one that was on Boylan Heights and the one that was on Belmont, how do we know for sure they're not connected? I 100% agree with you, the UVA one's not connected.
But even if
And interestingly, the UVA one of all of them, the UVA murder, the 3 football players, the Boylan Heights shooting, the murder on the downtown mall and the murder in Belmont, the one that was handled the best from a crisis management standpoint or a PR standpoint or a communicating with the community standpoint was the UVA one. That one by far had the best crisis management, the best PR, and the best communication from officials. Ryan got in front of it right away, and so did Longo.
if I remember correctly, though, we had some issues with them back when it was ongoing.
Well, the issues.
Why didn't they announce this to more people around Charlottesville rather than just the school?
No. Okay, I'll give you that. UVA, with the murder of the 3 football players, they were utilizing a Twitter account, a UVA emergency Twitter account, to give updates to the public. And a lot of folks in the community said the University of Virginia should have utilized its vast infrastructure and its deep $1 billion of endowment, billions and billions, to notify citizens
Yeah.
as opposed to just prioritizing students.
Yeah.
I'll give you that. But we also have to acknowledge that Jim Ryan and Tim Longo and how the University of Virginia handled
Yeah,
the murder of
they
these
jumped
3
on it
football
very
players.
quickly.
They got in front of it and they handled it extremely well. Charlottesville City can learn from the University of Virginia from crisis management, PR, and communication, and how UVA handled it versus how Charlottesville City's handled it so far. And perhaps why Charlottesville City's not handling it super great is the vast amount of vacancies and the lack of institutional memory.
Could be.
Or a lot of people are saying in the community, have people heard this, that they don't want to be super transparent about all the violence that's going on because they're very mindful of the brand that is Charlottesville, the brand that is World Class City, and the quality of life perception that they're trying to maintain?
Could be. Could also be that they could also be that they don't want to scare people. They don't want to read. They don't want people to read more into some isolated incidents than they would otherwise likely do.
But you don't. That's a fair statement. But you don't wonder. All these isolated incidents are starting to get, unfortunately, very close together.
So it seems. That may just be the reporting on it. And
What do you mean the reporting?
look,
The events transpired
even 10
close together.
Even 10 years ago, we did not have the
significance of communication associated with social media to get the word out about crimes like this.
yeah. And 20 years ago, we didn't even have social media.
That's fair.
would-
Let me ask that question then. That's completely fair. That's a fair statement from Judah. Does the recent
Spate of violence.
spate of violence, thank you, said perfectly. Well said, thank you. I'll use that phrase exactly like you did. Does the recent spate of violence and the fear and the vulnerability and the concern associated with that spate of violence, is that a byproduct of social media and the instantaneous nature of cell phone communication, or is it a byproduct of the actual violence itself? Has this always been the case for Charlottesville, where in years past or decades past, word traveled via the spoken word,
Yeah. It was
verbal communication?
It was more about your
Who you knew.
It was more about your neighborhood and your business.
That's fantastic
Who
right
do you,
there.
Who do you talk to? Who are you connected to? I read somebody make an interesting point about, new people coming to Charlottesville, and you start seeing comments in different areas of social media about, is it just me or is Charlottesville getting worse? And they made the point that when you first move here, everything you do is about fun. You're meeting people. You're going to bars, restaurants,
breweries,
whatever,
music events,
yeah.
hiking.
But
This is good. Go down this road. This is good.
As your network broadens, as your network broadened in previous decades, you would hear more about what was actually going on in the city.
Because you know more people.
Yeah. Because you get to know more people, because you hear more about what's actually going on, and so, you know, as people move in, everything starts out rosy, and then they start to hear things, and it starts to look worse and worse.
That's good.
20 years ago,
We're talking
probably-
2002.
you probably
2023.
you probably
2003.
didn't have any idea about anything going on. Like if there was gang violence over in name a. Okay, we don't have to name a neighborhood. If there was violence of any sort in a neighborhood, you wouldn't necessarily have heard about it unless you lived in the neighborhood.
Or you knew someone there.
Yeah.
That's a great point. Judah Wickower making great points. We give Judah Wickower props for that. That's bringing the A game. I'll ask this question succinctly and then you take over. People are freaking scared right now. Are we scared right now in Charlottesville and in Albemarle County and in Central Virginia? Because
We're more connected.
word is traveling fast through social media and on cell phones? Or are we scared right now in Charlottesville and Albemarle County and Central Virginia because we truly have reason to be scared? Or are we scared right now because the word's traveling faster than ever before? Or do we really have a reason to be afraid of our safety? That's a great question. Is it not?
Yeah.
Is this how it's always been? And we just didn't know about it?
Yeah.
Because it was compartmentalized to communication by mouth.
Yeah.
Or is this having momentum because it's on Facebook and on Twitter and on Instagram and being text back and forth to everybody? That's a great question. I've been here almost 23 years. Almost 23 years in this community. How many years have you been here?
My family first moved here in at the end of '95. I've been kind of in and out until I moved here full time, so to speak.
So you've been here since 95.
2002.
95. We'll say 28, almost 28 years for you. Almost 23 years for me, almost 28 years for you. That's a long time. Okay?
Yeah.
In those 23 years for me and the 28 years for you, have you seen this kind of momentum with communication associated with violence and crime and murder and gun violence?
This type of say that again.
And you've been here basically 28 years. In the almost 28 years you've been in this area, have you seen this kind of palpable and tangible communicative momentum or fear or vulnerability that's right now on the street associated with gun violence and murder and crime? I have not. Have you?
Of course not. I mean, we haven't had the communicative whatever.
Forums, mediums.
Yeah, we haven't had that for very long. And I don't know. I mean, I honestly don't know. I mean, somebody to ask would be, the police force.
Leah Westenberger said this. I'm going to get to some comments. I'm going to weave some comments in the mix here. Leah Westenberger said, I've been here 46 years, and there have always been shootings in the bad neighborhoods.
Yeah. I mean,
more comments coming in here for you. Finish your thought there, J-Dubs.
That's my impression, and probably why I'm less worried about all of this. I mean, yes, it is.
One of the reasons
it is troubling, but yeah, another one of the reasons is that I've lived in Los Angeles.
Another one of the reasons you've lived in LA. Another one of the reasons you're less worried about this, you're a single man.
That's true.
You do not have young children or children.
I'm also just not a worrier. I mean, I have family here.
I think your mindset changes a little bit
No,
when you have kids.
I'm sure you're right.
When you have children.
I'm sure you're right. But
You just look at life through the eyes of your. I'm not trying to marginalize by any means. I'm definitely not marginalizing.
I'm sure that's true, and I'm not. I won't argue against it. But I'm also just the kind of person that knows that.
You don't worry.
Well, you have to look at these logically. I mean, you don't have to, but you've got one at Lucky Blues.
We don't need to say.
I'm sorry, but we've got
Just
one.
for the sake of them.
Yeah, I apologize to them. This had nothing to do with them.
That's what I mean. That's what I mean.
The point of that was that was directed at a specific person that happened to be where he was.
That's true. You just happened to go in there.
The kids in the Omni. I don't know how that got started, or the kids in the parking lot, wherever. But
I'm more willing to say the Omni just because
I know.
It's a massive global brand where the restaurant in the mall is just owned by a dude that we know.
I know. The reason I changed my wording was because I don't think it was in the Omni.
Oh, but it was in the parking lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was on Omni property.
And this now in Belmont, and some guy by the Court Square, none of it is showing any kind of pattern. It's not like people are driving by,
Isn't a pattern gang violence?
right?
Isn't that the pattern?
Right, but so
Isn't that the pattern?
yes, but so that's why hiring someone to stand in Belmont is, I feel, foolish.
It's that, but
Because
you
if they see it there on a yes, maybe they'll stay out of Belmont and something will happen somewhere else.
You agree with the point that I made yesterday that you take a neighborhood that has its own neighborhood police or a gate to get into it is less likely to have crime of this magnitude.
Well,
you
yeah,
agreed with that.
Of course a place with a gate is less likely to have.
Well, isn't that the same premise, or isn't that the same argument foundation of if you have hired security or extra police patrol, then the violence is less likely to happen?
Police patrols go to patrols in relation to gang violence. They study where it's happening, and they set patrols to regularly show up around those areas. It's not just they don't just like park somewhere and.
No, I know. You're right. They drive around.
All the cockroaches to stay under the refrigerator. It's.
I like when you get metaphorical.
Let's get metaphorical.
Cockroaches to stay under the.
But really, I mean, I don't think there's you can't stop it. Look. There was a great article that talks about some of the ways that
You may need to look at our framing. Jump in, finish what you talked about in our article. People are talking a little bit on the framing there.
And that's because you.
I know. I'm
in and
moving.
out.
I'm moving out of the framing. I got a little ants in my pants today. 6-week-old. I got a 6-week-old at home that sleeps in spurts of 3 hours, 4 hours. Actually, my wife makes the point. Sometimes he gives us 5 hours at one time, and that's pretty damn good for a 6-week-old.
There you go.
But finish your point about the. You're talking about the op-ed in the Daily Progress. The link that you sent me.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's worth highlighting.
And it's not just one thing. I mean, they kind of. I'll keep it short and read this one of these last parts. All elements of the region: police, policymakers, preachers, teachers, academics, and executives must rally under a single anti-gang banner with a dynamic, charismatic leader who has executive responsibility. This will take multi-jurisdictional funding, private philanthropy, and the commitment of all of the region's public and private power brokers. It will require paid staff and volunteers. Above all, it will require accountability tempered with patience, because this isn't just something where you set up police in Belmont and there's no more gang violence anymore.
That's a great point. And I'm happy, I know you are as well. We're happy to help lead that charge, that multi-jurisdictional charge. And
But
basically
it-
what you're saying is the equation needed to return safety and quality of life and to diminish crime is an equation that involves police, elected officials, nonprofits, educational institutions, schools, teachers,
I don't know if you've read about
parents.
this, but a large portion of the violence that we've been seeing in recent months has been juveniles.
Certainly, not in the Belmont case, and not in the Boylan Heights case,
Okay.
not in the UVA case, but the Omni Hotel case, certainly. And Albemarle County Police highlighted that a lot of the gang violence was juveniles,
Yeah.
and that they're seeing that the gang activity is starting as early as middle school, which is a terrifying proposition,
Yeah. No doubt.
because that's when you're most impressionable.
Yeah. But so, again, that leads back into this being something that we all need to work on. It's not just going to be like, oh, Conscious needs to come in and
I give that.
in a month the
Give that props.
gang violence stops. For whatever reason, they're working out of Charlottesville. Whether it's, like you said, it's connection to 64, ease of access to 64, or some other reason, you've got to cut off the kids that are joining schools and
This is what Anonymous just said. Anonymous, the I Love Seville Network's version of Deep Throat. He said, when I lived in Houston, Texas, my neighborhood near Rice University had a voluntary subscription for private security. It was subscription. I don't think he utilized the right word, subscription. Had a voluntary, maybe subscription's the right word. Basically, his neighborhood near Rice University in Houston, the neighborhood association asked for $600 per year from each household to contribute, passing the hat, what I was talking about, passing the proverbial hat. And that $600 per household, if you wanted to do it, was utilized to hire private security. And he said it was very visible. He also made the point, to your point, that he's not sure it made a big difference.
yeah, I mean, I'm sure.
The Belmontonians can certainly afford that.
I mean, it depends.
Many of them. I'm not saying all of them.
If it was $50 a month, yeah, I'm sure a lot of them could afford it. I don't know.
It's $50 a month is what it is. Like
that's
if you're,
how much it was for him. I
yeah,
don't know that's how much it would be here.
and $50 a household would go a long way with the amount of densities in Belmont. I mean, if you're in the Belmont, if you're, here's a hypothetical for you. The Belmont Neighborhood Association. In the Belmont Neighborhood Association, are the board of directors in the Belmont Neighborhood Association currently putting a plan in place to collect voluntary dues to hire security for the neighborhood? The yellow shirt ambassadors we see at the corner, or the yellow shirt ambassadors we see at Scott Stadium or the John Paul Jones Arena, they can be hired. Will we see a yellow shirt ambassador program in Belmont? And will that decision making be predicated on the foundation that we need security, perceived security, to maintain our property values? Perceived security has value. We both know that because we're in the perception business. Perceived security has value.
That's fair. You really think that this one incident is going to drive home prices down in Belmont?
Keith made that point.
I would think if it was.
He wants to talk about that very thing on Wednesday.
I would think if it was a regular occurrence, certainly. I don't know.
Here's a very
I'm the wrong
uncomfortable
person to
question.
ask.
This is a very uncomfortable question. I don't know if I have the answer to this. What's the phrase you used that I thought was good? Recent spate of violence?
Yeah.
I think that's an excellent phrase. Will the recent spate of violence impact home values in Charlottesville City and drive people to Albemarle County to purchase houses because of perceived safety in Albemarle?
Possibly, but I mean, where are people moving from? Like,
If someone's coming from Northern Virginia, they're like, this is way safer than the streets of D.C.
If somebody's coming from New York, if somebody's coming from Los Angeles, if somebody's coming from Baltimore, like, they got to look around and be like, even if you showed them every single newspaper clipping from every single spate of violence that we've had around here, they would probably still look at you and laugh. And be like, okay, it's like I said, there are no patterns to the violence, unless of course you want to point at
umbrella them as gang violence. Yeah. That's a pattern.
But that's
a pattern.
But that's still not a pattern that you can.
Gang violence is a pattern.
Okay, it's a pattern, but what does that tell you about where the next violent act is going to take place? Okay. Absolutely nothing.
But it's a key performance indicator. It's a KPI.
It still doesn't give you any any information about where violence is likely to happen.
Let's get to comments. There's a lot coming in. We'll go to, the show's live on every social media platform. It's live on 15 Facebook pages, 15 Twitter accounts, Instagram, YouTube, LinkedIn, Spotify, iTunes, Apple Podcasts, Snapchat, TikTok. It's everywhere. Let's get to the comments. Scott Aaronworth is watching Virginia Beach. He says, I will be in Charlottesville in February. Scott Aaronworth, the king of Virginia Beach. I've often said the biggest foodie in Charlottesville is an attorney in Virginia Beach. He's coming to Charlottesville in February for what he calls a foodcation, where a 3 to 4 day period, he usually gets here on Thursday and he leaves Sunday night or Monday morning. He spends like $1,000 plus on food, going on a food bender. He's going to be here in February. He says, I'll be at Tavola in February. The craziness will not stop me from going to Belmont.
Yeah, I don't know why it would.
Leah Westenberger says, Charlottesville right now is not the Charlottesville where I grew up.
I'm sure that's true as well.
More comments coming in here. Genevieve Harlow Thompson says, this all could be part of a sex trafficking ring. They aren't releasing the identity because it would jeopardize the ability to go after others involved in a sex trafficking ring potentially.
That could be.
Nora Ali Gaffney says this, many of us will be more supportive of the Belmont businesses than we were before. The parking spots were full at Bell this morning for breakfast. That's great to hear. That's great to hear, right?
Yeah.
That's great to hear. Lisa Costello says, the news and the photo of the white sheet over the dead body in downtown Belmont cannot be unseen by me. And she says, we're great. She loves the dynamic. Genevieve Harlow Thompson, you'll appreciate this one. She said, I saw Judah walking his dog yesterday and it felt like a celebrity sighting. Do you know who Genevieve Harlow Thompson is?
I don't recognize the name.
Oh, she gave you some props right there. Lisa says, it appears it's drug-related, out-of-town folks, cash on the ground, people buying transport drugs across the country. Apparently the deal went sour.
Yeah, I mean, that seems like the most likely explanation.
Multiple people are putting on the feed that we have a ton of questions that need to be answered. Nora says, I've been here 49 years in June. I agree with Leah and Kevin, and I agree with Judah on a lot of this. My daughter was the person walking the dog in the Daily Progress article. It was freaky, but she is not scared and neither am I. Do we have questions? Absolutely. Crystal Johnson says this, I think what is missing from this conversation is that we need to know our neighbors more, their kids and what they do. We need to start knocking on the doors of people we don't normally talk to and start having conversations with people, start getting to know people, start seeing what each of us needs. We have families with kids that are hurting and parents in autopilot with their teens. If you don't know the family issues, then security and police will just penalize a problem that eventually gets out of control. I'll give her props on that. That comment is a perfect segue, Judah, into the Newport News shooting with the 6-year-old. The 6-year-old took his mom's gun. And the teacher that was shot in the Newport News Elementary School, she grew up in Ruckersville. She's from Ruckersville. And she went to James Madison University. Do you have her photo that you can put on screen? Do you have it saved from yesterday?
I think so.
Thank you. Her name, so I have it.
Abby Zwerner.
There we go. Say it again for the viewers and listeners.
Abby Zwerner.
Yeah, you're right. ZWERNER ABBY. She's on Facebook. There's a photo of her. Very pretty, right?
Yeah.
Very pretty. I always like the bucket hats like that. Her picture's on screen. I like the pigtails and I like the bucket hat.
Yeah.
I got some details from this story to relay to you and the viewers and listeners. Mm-hmm. She's from Ruckersville. She went to James Madison University. She saw the 6-year-old pull the gun and aim it at her to shoot her.
And she said she told the kids in the class to run.
She put her hand up first.
Oh, damn.
In a defense manner, and the bullet entered through her hand and went out her hand and then into her body. But going through the hand and the defense helped. And then she was so courageous. It may have saved her life. And she was so courageous, this Ruckersville person, this pretty gal from Ruckersville that went to JMU, she was so courageous that after she was shot, a bullet going through her hand, then out her hand and into her body, she then instructed all the students in her classroom to run and leave out of the classroom. And the police in Newport News is saying that she is a hero and saved the lives of other children in her class. The 6-year-old got the gun from his mom. The gun was legal. The mom purchased the gun in York County. It was legal, but he still got it from his mom. Don't you think the mom should be held accountable? And I'm not like, I'm trying to be empathetic here. I'm trying to be empathetic here. I really am. But if a mom or dad has a weapon that's unsecured to the point that a 6-year-old can grab it at home, the 6-year-old can put it on his or her person in his or her backpack, sneak it into a school, and use it to shoot a teacher and potentially shoot other kids, should the mom not be held accountable? I mean, I'm trying to be an empathetic person, but I'm also one that wants swift justice, and I'm also a father of 2 little boys. And my oldest, who's almost 5, is basically the age of a 6-year-old in kindergarten or first grade, whatever it was. You don't think the mom should be?
I think that's something for a court, for a jury to deliberate over, because we don't know. You know, she could have. The gun could have been better secured than you or I are thinking, and it just happens that the kid managed to get in and get it. We don't know.
If the 6-year-old is able to get in and get a gun, I think you can't say it's secured well. He's 6. It's not like he's 16 and can say, okay, the code is my mom's birthday. He's 6 years old. A 6-year-old being able to get a gun means it was not secured safely.
That's fair, but
he's 6.
What?
Here's a better question.
Are you saying we put a law on the books that if you don't have a gun well secured in your home, you could get fined?
I'm pretty sure that exists. Scott Aaronworth, can you help us on that? Any attorneys watching? Jim Hingley? Scott Aaronworth? Lloyd Snook, can you help us on that? John Blair? If you have a gun in your house, legally purchased gun, and it's not secured, and your kid who's 6 gets it and uses it to shoot a teacher, who is more culpable or should be held at a greater level of accountability, the 6-year-old or the mother? So that's a genuine question for you.
I mean,
does the 6-year-old more at fault or is the mom more at fault?
The 6-year-old is more at fault.
The 6-year-old knows. The significance of what he did? Who should be held at a greater accountability clip or face greater or more significant repercussions?
I think depending on the evidence, that perhaps some form of punishment might well be levied against someone who, a parent who allowed their child access to a weapon like that, even unintentionally. But I still think the vast majority of any of what you're talking about, responsibility, blame, lies at the feet of the child in this case.
I appreciate that. I respect that statement. Anonymous says this. He's called up the Virginia Code. We'll get to as many. We got a lot of comments we got to get to, and we have our traditional 1:45 conference call with one of our VIP clients. He says this, and he shows the Virginia State Code and the direct message on Twitter. VA Code 18.2-56.2. Here's what it reads. Allowing access to firearms by children, penalty. It shall be unlawful for any person to recklessly leave a loaded, unsecured firearm in such a manner as to endanger the life or limb of any child under the age of 14. Any person violating the provision of this subsection shall be guilty of a Class 1 misdemeanor. Class 1 misdemeanor. Do you have more beef with the mom? Jim Hinchley just shared a tweet with me. Jim Hinchley just shared the same one. Anonymous shared 18.2-56.2, and Commonwealth's attorney Jim Hinchley just shared the same one. In fact, he said there's another section to the code. There's a B. Anonymous did A, where he said it was A was Class 1 misdemeanor. Jim Hinchley offered more insight too. He said, it shall be unlawful for any person knowingly to authorize a child under the age of 12 to use a firearm, except when the child is under the supervision of an adult. Any person violating this subsection shall be guilty of a Class 1 misdemeanor. For purpose of this subsection, adult shall mean parent, guardian, person standing in local parent,
That's
Latin.
Part B.
Yeah, you see Part B?
Yeah, I was already on there.
Thank you, Anonymous, and thank you, Jim
Standing
Hinchley.
in loco parentis.
Yeah.
I think that just means in
Close proximity.
like a guardian. Well, obviously they've already listed guardian, but anyways, and yeah, Class 1 misdemeanor is confinement in jail for not more than 12 months and a fine of not more than $2,500, either or both.
I'm trying to be empathetic, but I got beef with the mom.
Yeah.
And I'm a swift justice guy. I got beef with the mom. Bill sent Judas Paint, Sherman Williams. Here, can you put this on screen? Contrarian paint.
Contrarian paint? I wonder what
Bill
that looks
just
like
sent
on
me
the
a
wall.
DM. It's contrarian paint. He said this is the paint that Judah likes to use. Contrarian paint. It's what makes the show good. I appreciate you being a contrarian. I like that you're the yin to the yang here. I welcome it. And I don't want anyone who watches or listens to this show to think that I'm like trying to be tough or argumentative or anything like that with Judah. I think the talk show is predicated on
Sometimes.
The talk show is predicated on the back and forth of J-Dubs and I. I'm curious to see how the Newport News, the shooting with the 6-year-old, how that's leveraged politically. Do moms...
Leverage politically against the mom?
No, leverage politically in upcoming elections. Like, Newport News is, 2.5 hours away from here? Like, if you're running for school board, there's 4 spots on the Albemarle County School Board that are up for grabs. Dr. Meg Bryce is running for the at-large spot.
Oh, you're saying how would it be used here?
Steve Harvey is running for the Whitehall spot. Ellen Osborne's running for the Scottsville spot. That's who we know so far. Like, how can that... Is that going to be utilized as a talking point during the campaign trail? Like, if you're a school board member and you're in favor of school resource officers, you'd be like, look, do mom and dads feel safe with their kids in schools? Should we not return the school resource officers back to the hallways? And here are a handful of reasons why, and the Newport News shooting is one of the talking points. And here's another question. You know how I asked you, does it make you worry more, the shootout in Belmont, if it was local people or if it was out-of-towners? We were both in agreement that it was more worrisome that it was out-of-towners, right? I'll ask you a question that's kind of similar to that. Does it worry you more that a 6-year-old shot a teacher or a 16-year-old shooting a teacher?
I think a 16-year-old would worry me more.
See, for me, a 6-year-old worries me more. So
But
much of these schools...
For me, the 6-year-old is an absolute fluke, and I don't see that becoming a regular occurrence.
The fluke nature of the 6-year-old is what worries me more. We've become almost desensitized to school shootings, and it's horribly unfortunate that that's the case because they're so prevalent. But those school shootings happen at the high school level. This is the first one that I can think of that involved an elementary school student, and certainly one, I mean, 6 is about as young as an elementary school student as you're going to be. You got 5-year-olds. 6-year-olds is about as young as you're going to be.
Yeah.
That scares the bejesus out of me, especially as a father of a 5-year-old and a 6-week-old, soon to be 5 and a 6-week-old. Can you guys think of one at an elementary school?
I can't think of one that was perpetrated by an elementary school student.
Right? I don't know. It's going to be a hell of a time for Charlottesville and hell of a time on the election trail. Hell of a time. Welcome to Charlottesville City and your $200,000 a year job, Michael Kachis. You got a police department that's a 1/3 empty.
And you got a gang war to stop.
You got a gang war to stop in a police department that's 1/3 empty. And Charlottesville Twitter wants to defund you and hates your guts.
We're never going to defund the police. They can scream and shout all they want. It's not going to happen.
I don't think it's going to happen either. And frankly speaking, the longer the violence has momentum behind it, the even less likely defunding the police is going to happen.
Yeah.
Someone made this comment that, you know, when progressives, you know, the time and point where progressives want local government to start having
more cops,
significance and more cops and do more work. You know the point when progressives want that?
Right about now.
When it impacts their pocketbook and their wallet and their purse.
Yeah.
When it impacts progressives, but when it starts impacting their bottom line, that's when they start changing tune.
Yeah. Somebody needs to come in here and stop this.
Right.
Well, who would that be? Oh, maybe the cops.
Yeah. Imagine that. I think today's show is pretty darn good. I thought you were on point today. I like the back and forth. His name is Judah Wickower. You'll see him walking his dog Liza around Charlottesville and Albemarle County. When you do, give Judah a hooty-hoo and holler at him.
And know that if you don't see me wearing my glasses,
That you can't see.
I probably won't recognize you. Somebody honked out there when I was out in the courtyard, and I was just like, "Hey, how's it going?" I have no idea who you are.
You did a great job today, Judah.
Thank
He's Judah Wickower. My name is Jerry Miller. We got the 1:45 conference call. If I get this phone call in the next 12 seconds, I'm on time. Thank you for joining us on the I Love CVille show. So long. I'm calling right now.